Well, in Gaza, celebrations have turned to terror. Israeli tanks seizing the Rafah crossing as a new assault begins on the last refuge for more than 1 million Palestinians. The fate of a ceasefire hanging in the balance.
In darkness, in Gaza, they danced. As news that Hamas accepted a ceasefire deal spread. Just hours later, Israel rejected the proposal.
There was really a lot of hope over the last days, so we're genuinely devastated.
Instead, stepping up its attacks on Rafah, one of the only places left in Gaza that hasn't been destroyed. Once designated a safe zone by Israel, Rafah is currently home to around 1.4 million displaced Palestinians, more than half of Gaza's population. Those in eastern Rafah woke up yesterday to leaflets falling from the sky, ordered once again to flee for their lives.
If you stay in this place, you're going to get killed. So you go to the other place that this person told you you won't be killed.
The Israeli government has previously marked areas as safe and subsequently dropped bombs on those areas.
There's nowhere to go. There is no safety to be led to. It's a lot of panic and a lot of chaos.
But Benjamin Netanyahu is under pressure from the families of hostages and their supporters who are demanding Israel accept a deal.
Stop the killing, save lives, lives of hostages and lives of Israeli soldiers.
From the United States, which opposes any ground operation in Rafah.
We've made clear our views about operations in Rafah that could potentially put more than 1 million innocent people at greater risk.
And on the other side, from his hardline coalition partners, on whom he depends for political survival. Their demand that Israel fully occupies Rafah.
I say to the leaders of the world, no amount of pressure will stop Israel from defending itself. If Israel is forced to stand alone, Israel will stand alone.
But while Israel has said the current ceasefire deals fall short, it has agreed to more talks. In a war that has raged 7 months, a whisper of hope that these moments may soon be coming to an end.
The reality for people in Gaza is they are in a continued months-long race for survival. One person described to me life in Gaza like a blender and not knowing when you're going to get cut.
Hard pictures to watch, aren't they? Looking at the ceasefire deal that's been suggested, the first 2 ceasefire phases would each last 42 days. Phase 1 would see the release of Israeli hostages, dead or alive, in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Phase 2 would see the complete withdrawal of most Israeli troops from Gaza. And Phase 3 would see the complete lifting of the blockade of Gaza.
Which makes it very difficult, I think, to see a ceasefire agreement happening, as in Israel coming to... Let me just start with one note of hope and then explain why I think it's unlikely in the end. But there is one positive that comes out of it, and that is stage 2 that you described there. This is really subtle stuff in the language, but the language that's in it is that the 42-day period of that bit would be there'd be an agreement to restore what's called a sustainable calm. I don't know exactly what that means, but what I do know is that that's a language, or what one of the officials has briefed, is that that's language that both Hamas and Israel agreed on because they couldn't agree on whether this would be a permanent ceasefire, which is what Hamas wanted, or a temporary ceasefire, which is what Israel wanted. So they agreed on this phrase, apparently, of sustainable calm. And that suggests there's at least one bit where maybe they might be able to cross over what was previously...
Where are they having these conversations, Walid?
Well, so Qatar and Egypt are the ones putting this together. These negotiations, if they do happen, and Israel say they're going to send people, will happen in Cairo. Right. So and they'll just send delegations, whatever. But already we've heard, and this is the reason I'm a bit less hopeful. Already we've heard an Israeli official say this is not acceptable to Israel. And when you look at Israel's stated missions and you look at its conduct, they've basically said they're not stopping until they get rid of Hamas. If it's all about hostages being swapped, well, they've actually had opportunities to do that in the past. There's been a little bit of that, but actually they haven't taken that chance. So once they say that's what they're after, they've also, by the way, said we're going to go into Rafah, like we're seeing now, with or without the ceasefire. So when you put all that together, personally, I cannot see how a ceasefire deal gets reached. And it is heartbreaking because you look at the people celebrating that and then to see that snatched away.
With Hamas, isn't it in their charter that they want to see the destruction of Israel?
Yeah, and that's
how do you make peace there?
That's always been Israel's argument.
Yeah.
And so when Israel looks at that, saying we want a complete withdrawal, lift the blockade, Israel's going to say, well, sorry, we don't trust you. But the problem is the whole world is looking at this situation and saying, that's intolerable. You've got people on the brink of starvation. There are so many stories. We don't have time to go into them now.
It's awful. Seems impossible.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. I hope I'm wrong.